So my first musical memories were gospel music. Really, my first musical memories were going to choir rehearsal with my parents and, with my grandparents there. So I would be, from the womb, I was going to choir rehearsal. My mom was directing the choir, literally.
Right.
And so I was hearing the songs that they were teaching and learning and singing, and very early on wanted to be a part of that music. And so I would beg to, let me sing in the choir. And I started taking piano lessons when I was like 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, wow, that's young.
The reason my mother kind of started to drift away from us as a family was when her mother died. So our grandmother, maternal grandmother, died when she was only 58, 59 years old. She died of heart failure, and I was very close with her. My mother was very close with her. She was the organist at church. She directed the choir with my mother. She taught me how to play gospel music. So we were all very close, and we spent so much time with her in church and at her house, and we were extremely close, and all of us were, but my mom was especially close to her. When she died, my mother went into like a decade of kind of depression and self-medication and distance from us as a family. And so that was very kind of formative for all of us, because this happened when I'm 10, 11 years old.
How do your kids identify, or do they? Does it even matter?
They know their dad's black, and they're like my skin color, like almost exactly. And so they see themselves as black and brown, and they know their mother's Asian. And so I have introduced the word Blasian to their vocabulary.
Welcome to Identified, where we explore, challenge, and redefine the traditional concepts of family and identity. In this episode, I am joined by Grammy, Emmy, Tony, and Oscar-winning songwriter, producer, and philanthropist, John Legend.
As you know, I've done Finding Your Roots, and going on that show, especially I think for African Americans who don't know a lot about their ancestry, can't draw those family trees in the same way that people of other backgrounds can. It's always interesting to go on that show, and I think Skip Gates, he's done the show in a way that's very inclusive of all different types of ethnicities. But I think it means a lot, especially for Black people, and I'm sure the title came from Roots, the original miniseries that was about Alex Haley thinking about his ancestry and what that might involve. And so I think for Black people in America, it's a very interesting and a bit fraught thing to think about where we come from, because there's going to be slavery involved. And if you're of any kind of lighter hue, then there's likely forced sexual activity involved. Our ancestors are products of that, and that means we're products of that.
That's a crazy way to, you're right, but it's such a crazy, simple way to think about it, to look at it, and we're both of slightly lighter hue.
Yes, exactly.
I thought about this,
and we would tell ourselves, oh, we're part Native American or this or that. But when Skip did my ancestry, there was no Native American. It was 2/3 Black and 1/3 white. And so, that third white comes often from forced sex, from someone who literally owns your being and is requiring you to pleasure him. A lot of African Americans are the product of that. Like I said, if you're of lighter skin, the likelihood is high that you're the product of that. And so I grew up in a family where I didn't know any white ancestors. So everyone in my family thought of themselves as Black, and even my great-grandmother, who could pass for white, she was still part Black. This family story is she was the product of rape. My great-grandmother, Elmira Bass, I knew her, and I knew my other great-grandmother. I didn't know their husbands because they passed away before I could get to know them. They lived in the Midwest quite a lot. And so Ohio, Michigan is where my ancestry goes back pretty far.
Right. So is that like early 1900s?
Even into late 1800s.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So on Finding Your Roots, we found the story of relatives of ours, ancestors of ours, who were enslaved in one of the border states below Ohio. When the slave owner passed away, in his will, he gave them their freedom.
Wow.
But the moved to Ohio, and descendants of the slave owner tried to bring them back into slavery, literally kidnapped them, reclaimed them back into slavery. There was a whole court case, and Ohio literally went to court to defend my black family, which was trying to be taken back into slavery by the descendants of the slave owner, and we won. Our family was able to remain free in Ohio because Ohio went to court and fought for our freedom. So some of my ancestry has literally been in Ohio since before the Civil War. We're able to live free in Ohio because of this provision in the slave master's will.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's a crazy story.
Wow. Did you, so knowing, said two great...
We knew none of this. The family knew none of this.
Right, so this all came out.
And this all came out from research from Finding Your Roots.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah. Do you remember, you said you knew both your great-grandmothers, which goes back pretty far. You must have been a kid, I assume.
The older one was born in 1895.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew her, and she lived into her hundreds. So I knew her for, most of my childhood.
Did she tell you stories? I mean, I'm always curious, because obviously people wrote things, but there's not photos. But the equivalent of you being, say, a 10-year-old talking to her would have been her talking to somebody, her great-grandmother, her great-grandmother, could have gone back another 75 years.
Exactly,
right?
And I didn't get those stories because, I was at an age where it wasn't that relevant to me at the time and wasn't something I thought a lot about. And so, we missed out on the chance to get those stories. And now we're trying to be more diligent about recording some of these family stories on both sides, Chrissy's family and mine. We're trying to be a little more intentional about just recording some of these memories. And we have certain relatives that are really good at keeping photos and family lore and all that stuff. I think in general, more of us are trying to be more aware of where we come from and making sure we don't lose those stories and memories.
Yeah, makes sense. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Springfield, Ohio. It's in western Ohio. It's between Dayton and Columbus. It's very infamous right now because that's where all the Haitian migrants have come, and it literally was discussed in the debate, and a lot of misinformation was being spread about it. But that's literally my hometown.
Oh, wow.
A town of 80,000 people that doesn't get any press for any other reason was discussed in the national debate.
Yeah. And how did you grow up with siblings, with both parents?
I grew up with both parents most of my childhood, and then my parents got divorced when I was around 11. We lived with my dad, but we were surrounded by a lot of family. I grew up in a black church, Pentecostal church. My grandfather on my mother's side was our pastor, and her older brother took over as the pastor when their dad retired. My grandmother, their mother, was the church organist, and her mother was Elmira Bass, the one I was telling you that could have passed for white. Elmira Bass was married to Bishop Bass, Bishop Ralph Bass, and so we have this lineage of leaders in the Pentecostal church and on both sides of the family. So my dad's younger brother is a bishop in the Pentecostal church. My relatives on both sides are very involved still in the Pentecostal church. That's where I really learned music. That's where it was kind of the center of where my family's activity and cultural connection was. So it was very formative for me.
Yeah, what musically, I'm always curious, and the church is obviously such a sort of common place for people to get into music. What's your first musical memory? So
my first musical memories were gospel music. Really, my first musical memories were going to choir rehearsal with my parents and, my grandparents there. So I would be, from the womb, I was going to choir rehearsal. My mom was directing the choir, literally.
Right.
And so I was hearing the songs that they were teaching and learning and singing, and very early on wanted to be a part of that music. And so I would beg to, let me sing in the choir. And I started taking piano lessons when I was 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, wow, that's young.
We had a local music store that we were taking lessons at, and that was more of the classical kind of straight kind of style of playing. That was an older white lady that was teaching me there. And then my grandmother would teach me gospel music, so I was getting kind of both sides. Gospel music, the way my grandmother played it was more by ear, just learning the chord progression, playing by ear and not reading a lot. Though we did have hymnals where you did need to read sometimes, but a lot of it was improvisational or by ear. And so I really early on started to develop my ear. And now as a popular musician, I rarely actually have to read anything.
Right.
But I know enough theory to, know how to write out a chord progression, and it helps me with my writing, etc. Almost all of my playing now is by ear.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I guess, if you sort of learn that way or partially learn that way, you always have it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I rarely have to sight read. Now, if I'm sight reading, it's usually The vocal line only, and then the chart for the chords of the song.
Right. Did you grow up with siblings?
All four of us live together.
Oh, wow,
all four of us are by the same father and mother. We're only 2 years apart each.
Oh, yeah.
So
where are you in the sequence?
I'm number 2 out of 4.
Okay.
So we were all together all the time.
All close, all musical.
Everybody's pretty creative. My older brother played the drums, and we were like the church band.
I was going to say, you got a band, right? 4 people.
Yeah, once we were like adolescents, we kind of took over the church music. So I would play the keys and direct the choir, and my brother would play the drums. And then my younger brother actually turned out to be a really good singer, but he was a late bloomer. He didn't really sing when we were young, just a little bit. But as he got older, he was more into sports when he was in high school. As he got older, he can really sing. And so he toured with me and sang backup for me and opened for me sometimes. His biggest problem was he sounded so much like me that it was like people didn't want another John Legend.
If you ever needed a night
we already
off.
have one. He sounds a bit like me and stylistically and just his vocal timbre and everything. So it was hard for him to break through individually, but he's a really talented musician. Yeah. And then my sister can sing a bit too. She doesn't do it, for public consumption, but she can sing a bit too, but she's also very creative artistically, and she caters and does food art, and she's just very handy. And
right. So there's a creative gene.
And my older brother that plays the drums is also a really good artist as well. So he paints and draws and cuts my hair and does, anything that involves hands and eyes and having good hand-eye coordination and creativity, he's really good at.
Yeah. Do you remember, you must, big family with 4 kids, traditions, things like Christmas, Thanksgiving, were those times when people came together? Did you have big meals, extended family?
Yeah, so most of our extended family lived very close to us. Right. So almost all of them either lived in Cincinnati or the Dayton area or the Columbus area. We would all get together for Christmas holidays. Usually it was my dad's side for Christmas, and my mom's side for Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. My mom's side was very strictly religious, and the Pentecostal church wasn't big on kind of the pagan expressions of holidays. We didn't do Christmas decorating and there's no Santa to be found and
it was just about Jesus.
It was about Jesus. Yeah. I did a riff on this in my Christmas show last year where I was like, Jesus was the reason for the season. We didn't do the Easter Bunny for Easter. We didn't do Santa Claus for Christmas. It was this is a religious holiday. We're not incorporating these secular themes and traditions. Right. On my mom's side, that's really what it was like. But on my dad's side, it was a little more relaxed when it came to that. And so there was Santa, Black Santa at my granny's house, a Christmas tree and Christmas lights and decorations. And it was a bit more festive on my dad's side.
So you had these two kind of different things celebrating the same holidays.
And they weren't drastically different. My granny Stevens was Baptist, and they just weren't as fundamentalist and strict about certain things.
Right.
But then her 3 sons all converted to Pentecostalism. My dad kind of led them over there because he started dating my mom. And, she's the pastor's daughter, and he kind of converts to Pentecostalism. And then his brothers kind of joined in, and so all 3 of them are Pentecostal, but their sisters aren't, not that I know of. So their family was a little bit more hybrid, but my mom's side of the family was very strictly Pentecostal fundamentalist,
right?
And at the time it was no skirts above the knees, no earrings. Very few of them wore makeup. It was very conservative and straight. A lot more kind of traditional views on women's roles and, obviously sexuality and things of that nature. It was very a fundamentalist approach to Christianity.
Interesting. When did you leave Ohio?
I left to go to college. And so I was homeschooled throughout most of elementary school. I did 2 years at a private Christian school. Other than that, I was homeschooled all the way up till 8th grade.
Oh, wow.
My parents got divorced when I was around 11, and I went to public school for the first time, but I had advanced so much in homeschool that they skipped me 2 grades over time. So the first time I skipped was when I went into the Christian school. I was supposed to go to 1st grade, but they moved me to 2nd grade. So that was 1 year skip. And then when I went to the public school for the first time, I was supposed to go to 7th grade then, but they skipped me to 8th grade. And so over time, I skipped 2 grades, and I was 2 years younger than my classmates. And so I arrived at high school at the age of 12. Wow. Public high school.
That's young.
Yeah, huge high school, a bunch of kids I didn't know. I was super shy. I was I don't know anyone everyone here, but the only thing that made me feel like I could, announce myself and introduce myself was music. I would sing in the show choir and the musical theater and talent shows, etc. And that was basically my way of, making my presence felt. And that was the way I started to make friends and just come out of my shell a bit, because otherwise I would have just been this shy, nerdy kid that was 2 years younger than everybody. And that's a weird time to be 2 years younger than everybody.
I was always 1 year younger, and I was always friends with kids in the class below me, maybe because we were the same age, but always also, the last to get a driver's license, just like all these things, always felt kind of young.
Yeah, all these rites of passage, you're just behind on all of them. When you get to college, you're 16.
Wow, 16 in college.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
That's what the real adults
and so there was no time when I was in college where I could legally have a drink. And I'm literally working my first job out of college.
And where did you go to college?
I went to UPenn in Philadelphia. Right. And then my first job was in Boston, but I literally couldn't have a legal drink until I had already been working like 6 months out in the real world.
That's really funny. That's wild.
Yeah.
Has there been much tragedy in your family that you know?
Yeah. The reason my parents got divorced, really, and, divorce isn't, rare. So calling it a tragedy is, it is what it is. But the reason my mother kind of started to drift away from us as a family was when her mother died. So our grandmother, maternal grandmother, died when she was only 58, 59 years old. She died of heart failure, and I was very close with her. My mother was very close with her. She was the organist at church. She directed the choir with my mother. She taught me how to play gospel music. So we were all very close, and we spent so much time with her in church and at her house, and we were extremely close, and all of us were, but my mom was especially close to her. When she died, my mother went into like a decade of kind of depression and self-medication and distance from us as a family. And so that was very kind of formative for all of us, because this happened when I'm 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
Our only sister was, 6 years old. So she basically, most of her childhood was without our mother. So that was kind of a big tragedy in all of our lives that really affected us moving forward.
Yeah, that's hard. Mm-hmm. And you eventually started your own family.
Yeah, eventually started our own family. And, just to tie a bow around my mother's story, she came back to the family, and she's sober and a great grandmother now. But during that 10-year period, we basically were estranged from her. And she was in a really, dark place. But thankfully, she's in a great place now and healthy and back to her vivacious, wonderful self that she was before all that happened.
Yeah. It took do you think starting a family have something to do with that, with bringing her back, or do you think
it happened before? It happened before, but I think it just it was time, and a lot of the family and her friends tried to bring her back to sobriety and a healthy place, and eventually it worked.
Yeah. How many children do you have?
I have 4 kids. Just like my mom and dad did.
Making the same. And how many did Chrissy grow up with?
She was the only one that was both from her dad and mom.
Okay.
But she has half siblings on both sides. So her dad had an entire family of 3 kids with his first wife, but they're much older and they're the same age as her mother. So his second wife was Chrissy's mom, and Chrissy's mom had a daughter in Thailand before she met Chrissy's dad. And then when Chrissy's dad and mom met in Thailand, they, fell in love, got married, and they had 1 kid. And her name is Christine.
Yeah.
Christine Diane Teigen.
Amazing. So, but now you've got this
yes.
Maybe I would say huge. I grew up, single mom, only kid. So huge to me.
Yeah. 4 is a lot. It's a big family.
And multicultural.
Yes.
I suppose, right?
Multicultural. So I'm black, and Chrissy's half Thai and half Northern European.
How do your kids identify? Or do they? Does it even matter?
They know their dad's black, and they're like my skin color, like almost exactly. And so they see themselves as black and brown, and they know their mother's Asian, and so I have introduced the word Blasian to their vocabulary. And they embrace, both sides. Their Thai grandmother shows them a lot of Thai culture, and they've been to Thai temple with her, and we've been to Thailand together, and then they've spent a decent amount of time with my side of the family as well. And so they're getting to know their black side too, and they're aware aware that they're from a multicultural family. They also go to school with lots of kids that are from mixed families as well.
Right.
And so it doesn't feel like, there's any kind of anomaly at school. There's lots of like half black, half Asian, half everything.
Yeah. 2025 in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
We did a film with our friend W. Kamau Bell for HBO called 1000% Me.
Loved it. Yeah.
He has biracial kids, and the whole film is about exploring that identity in the Bay Area, which another place where there's a lot of biracial kids, knowing that people have mixed identities and dual identities and embracing that, and also helping them, explain it to themselves and to people who ask them about it.
Yeah, so I loved that movie. I watched it, and of course really related to it with a white mother and a black father. I mean, so much of it is where you are and who you're around. I mean, my first 10 years, I was in really, really diverse places in Amherst, Massachusetts, and New York, with kids of all races, all mixes, lots of kids with single parents, so I wasn't a weird kid at all. And then when I moved to Salt Lake City when I was 10, suddenly I was a weird kid. Nothing about me changed, but my surroundings changed. So it sounds like your kids are in a great place. What's interesting is, I don't know if this will happen or not, but I've known siblings, mixed race siblings, who sort of choose to go in different ways.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to identify more with my black side. I'm going to go more over here.
Yeah. And it depends on how you look, because, I'm working on a Broadway adaptation of Imitation of Life, which explores one of the main characters passing for white. There's some people of mixed race that can pass for white, and sometimes it's a choice, whether or not you choose to do that or you choose to embrace your darker hue and your darker side of the family. My kids, they are my skin tone, so they wouldn't be able to, lie their way out of being black.
Yeah.
At least the older two. We'll see how the younger two, how their skin develops. But I think they'll always be seen as black or brown wherever they go.
Yeah.
And so it won't be really a choice to pass, but you still have choices how much of your background you explore and embrace. And so it'll be up to them. I like to show them who they are through music and culture, and I'm proud of Black American culture and what we've created as artists and filmmakers and everything we've done to express ourselves in this country. I want my kids to grow up knowing about that and embracing it and being proud of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is family to you?
I feel more connected to family now that I have kids. I'm more connected to my extended family. Having kids makes me more aware of the whole family tree. It makes me think about our roots, makes me think about our connections more and more and value them more and more. It makes me want to be around extended family more. It makes me want my kids to be around extended family more. They love being around their cousins on both sides. They just love it. There's something about them knowing that they're family with each other that creates this kind of connection that they don't have with their friends. And I love that. I love seeing that with them. I want to foster that and encourage that for them. And it makes me, like I said, want to foster it for myself too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for tuning in. Please consider subscribing to Identified wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other major streaming platforms. And be sure to explore identifiedpod.com, the place to gain a better understanding of family. Our executive producer is Kiran Banerjee, and the show is produced by Palm Tree Island. The music for Identified is by Noella and Patricia Brennan. I'm Nabil Ayers. Thanks for tuning in.